If you're looking for adventure, grab the modules each month to support the channel and play the campaign with your gaming group. You're sure to get hooked on adventure.
Welcome to Quest Givers. I'm DMG, this is DM Scotty, and this is all about how to pace your RPG sessions. This is extremely important and builds upon all the other videos we've been putting on this channel.
Pacing. It's very important because if you let your game drag down or go too fast, actually, it can be the reverse. It can ruin the feeling at the table, right? Because if you go too fast, I've been in games like this where the DM's going too fast and you don't feel like you had your chance to interject, right? We've talked about strict turn order. Yeah. That can really help with the pacing as far as like everybody getting a chance to do something before the game master just throws the game in overdrive and goes forward. So it's both sides of the equation. You want to have enough of a chance for everybody to interact with what's going on, but not too much where it just drags down, right? I've been in games where something has happened, maybe it's a puzzle or something, and it's just no one can figure it out, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I like about your technique of everybody kind of noticing something else. Yeah. So you could do that at the table. If the pacing is like grinding to a halt, you could have somebody notice something, and you don't necessarily have to do a check every time, just if they're near. What I like to do is not necessarily have a check, but if they're near something in the game, like physically on my terrain, they notice. I just have them notice something. I don't roll the check because it's more interesting if they notice it, and if they don't notice it, then I can't adjust the pace, right? Because that's one way to adjust the pace. So that's a good technique for getting the pace going and also for slowing it down.
That technique is structured over years of being in games where there's a player who wants to dominate the game, wants to always be the one asking questions, always be talking, always be the one rolling, always up front fighting. It gets the 3 or 4 other people who are at the table, it gets a bit boring for them because it's just this one guy who just dominates. I'm going to do everything, it's all good. With strict turn order, they shut up because it's not their turn, right? And what I like to do is each turn, it's for a player, there's a perception side of it and an action side of it. So perception is you're like seeing things, asking one question, and then some sort of action that you can do. So the player can kind of decide, okay, ask a question. The person say like, what's happening here? Oh, well, there's X, Y, and Z, and then the action is, well, I'm going to go to the gate. So that's their turn, and then moves on to the next person, and they can ask a question, or now they know there's a gate, so they go, okay, well, I'm going to have a look at the gate, and you say, well, you notice there's a guard up on the tower. Well, I want to shoot the guard. So they shoot the guard. That's their action. Then the next person is like, they've got all the information from the previous players, right? And they're building up their knowledge of what's happening as they go around the table, and each person is building upon, and each person is given a little nugget to work with. Because the problem is, if you do strict turn order and you're not giving people little nuggets, they have, like, I don't know what to do. I'm sitting here. Well, I just also shoot at the guy, But if you give them something where there's a choice, now should I shoot at the guy? Should I go to the gate? Or should I now have a look at the trapdoor I've noticed on the other side of the wall that the other players haven't seen? All this is kind of, now when you get back to the original guy, now he's got he's running towards the gate, but the other say, hey, there's a trapdoor, so he can go trapdoor, he can climb the wall and fight the guard, he can go through the gate. There's all these options that have been built up, and we have only done one round. So it works really, really well to engage people. But when it comes to the pacing side of it, when you've got someone who wants to, do this whole sort of stand up and, act for 10 minutes, you can also cut them off. Sorry, you can only do one thing, you can only do this. It's kind of, you've mechanically stopped that from happening, which means you can get a lot more done in the game. So everyone gets a turn. You don't want someone to be, their turn to be more than like a minute. So if you've got 5 people, it's 5 minutes per round. So in an hour, what's that? It's mathematical. You've got a whole kind of like,
Don't explode my brain.
You don't explode my brain, man. So yeah, you got a lot of turns.
Yeah, a lot of turns.
Too much mead, as the two wizards.
It is too much mead. Another thing too, I like to say with pacing is really think about roles, right? Because roles are kind of stop the game down, and you got to roll, right? You're stopping the story down. You're stopping the pacing. It's going out of the story. It's making you do something mechanical, and take as many of those roles out as you feel you need to, right? Just tell them the information. If they're close enough to see it, just tell them they see it. I mean, most people, if they're in a situation that's like this, they're paying attention to their environment. They're not just walking around with their nose in the air. They're looking around, actively looking around. What is dangerous? What could I use to advantage? And all this kind of stuff. So you don't necessarily have to have roles for all that. Just let them do it. And what Garrett said is, this works very well for D&D too, because essentially, like, a perception check is like basically a free action. So yeah, you get your action, and you can pop that perception, or you can have them see something or notice something as part of their turn. You don't have it's not a bonus action. It's not anything like that. So that's easy. That's really easy to incorporate with D&D as well as other games. So I like to think about only have the dice rolls if it makes the game more interesting, right? And because it has a tendency to slow the pacing down, to ruin your pacing. So don't overdo rolls. Don't have everybody roll for every single thing. If it's something they could easily do, if it's a thief climbing a wall that's and they have the right gear, and they're not under duress, they're not under attack, just let them climb the wall. Don't make a roll. Why do you need to make a roll? So think about how rolls affect the pacing.
I'd also like to put a caveat on that, only because 7D system is like there's a lot of rolls, but there's a reason for it. Is because every time you're rolling, you have an ability to get experience. So the characters actually want to roll.
Oh, right, gotcha.
So that's adding to the game. So it depends again on the rule system that you're playing.
Yeah, you're right. It would depend on the rule system.
But you are right. In a D&D scenario, it will slow down the game. It will add. But what I like to do, which works really, really well, is if you've got an event coming up where there's going to be a dragon or something that's going to pop over the mountain or something like that, you start at a super high difficulty level for perception. Mm-hmm. And each round you drop it down by one and keep dropping down. And everyone can do a perception check on their turn. You can do it, so they do it individually on their turn.
Right.
And you just drop the level down each round until you notice the dragon. And the sooner they get on that thing, the further away the dragon is and the more time they have. But they know something is coming. They know mechanically that something is coming because you're doing this thing, which is adding a sort of sense of dread that, what are we missing? What information are we missing? Why is he making us roll? And so if you're going to do that thing, like especially it works really well with secret passages, so the first person doesn't see it and the second person doesn't see it, and like every time they go past this place, the difficulty drops down in terms of perceiving the secret passage.
That's a fun idea. It's a really fun idea. I like that.
But it depends on the game that you're playing as to whether that mechanically makes any sense or you want them to do that. But yeah, pacing wise, there's the pacing of the story as well. So what I like to do and what we've done in our modules is you have there's two things you have. You have a scene and you have a transition. So a scene is like combat, or you're investigating something, or you're standing talking to someone, or you're looking at you're disarming a trap or something like that. That's a scene. When you're walking down the corridor, or you're traveling, or you're resting or whatever, that's a transition. Okay, so scene is like moment by moment, and transition is an expandable period of time. It's like a few moments up to weeks, right, or months or years. You can just, in a step, you can traverse a large amount of time.
That's a great way to think about it, because most people are familiar with that, like in movies. They're familiar with that terminal, that kind of thing in movies.
So the way you want to structure it, you want to have a scene followed by transition, followed by a scene. So don't go scene, 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 transition. You go scene, transition, and you get this natural sort of ebb and flow. Combat happens, there's an opportunity for them to rest, all right? And that you have to think environmentally as to how you're doing that. Because if you go combat, event, you're scene, there's the pacing is too fast. There's too much happening, and the characters feel like they're just being completely overwhelmed.
Right.
So when you go scene and transition, even if the transition is short and they've got only moments to heal or whatever, and then it breaks into another scene, you've still sort of slowed down a bit. Let people catch their breath and then go back into the action again. So there's that sort of up and down pacing as well.
Right. Yeah, that's a nice way to do it. Yeah.
You can check out our website, questgivers.com. What can they find there?
They can find our modules, they can find miniatures, they can find short quests, they can find GM advice, DM advice. So check it out, and it's all nicely priced for you guys. The game master who doesn't maybe you play D&D, maybe you don't. It's for all games. So check it out if you're a game that doesn't have a lot of modules. That we really want to target every single game that people like to play.
And of course, we have a Kickstarter launching again on September 1st. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next Friday.
Thank you all.